I always knew, the moment I breathed too deep, my own scent would betray me. That thought clung to the back of my throat as I stepped across the threshold of the Directorate's headquarters. The building was everything you'd expect from a place that specialized in hunting down monsters. Brutal concrete, high ceilings, corridors lined with cameras, and the kind of air that tasted like bleach and suspicion. I walked like I belonged there, boots striking the floor with the kind of confidence only lies can give you. On paper, I was a beta mercenary with a record of efficient kills, a disposable recruit brought in for dirty work. In reality, I was an omega in disguise, and if anyone caught the truth, on the edge of their tongue, my career, and maybe my life, was over. The reception hall was filled with soldiers and operatives, their chatter sharp, their eyes sharper. I felt them graze against me, sizing me up, searching for weakness. Omegas always carried a particular stillness inside, a hum just under the skin. Betas didn't. So every step I took was a gamble. Act too calm, they'd suspect. Act too brash, they'd suspect. And all the while, my body threatened to betray me with every breath. Recruit? The voice came from my left, low, cutting. I turned, and there he was. Jahl. Even before he spoke again, I knew this man was trouble. Tall, broad shoulders beneath a perfectly fitted black uniform. Dark hair streaked with silver at the temples. His eyes were pale gray, too cold to belong to anything human, and the way he carried himself screamed control. Not confidence, control. Like every step, every blink, had been calculated and filed away in advance. Name? His tone wasn't a question. Theo, I said. My voice came out steady, even bored, like I'd done this dance 100 times. Background? Hunting contracts. Freelance. I tilted my head, offering the blandest smile I owned. I'm good with a blade, better with a rifle, don't ask me to cook. He didn't smile back. His nostrils flared the slightest bit like he was sampling the air. My skin crawled. Could he smell it? Could he tell? No, my suppressants were holding. They had to. You look soft. His eyes narrowed. Betas who hire themselves out usually don't make it past 30. You've barely got scars. Guess I'm prettier than most, I shot back. My mouth always moved faster than my brain. Don't worry. I promise not to distract your men. A flicker of something crossed his face, annoyance maybe. The man had the patience of a predator watching an idiot mouse dance on the edge of its paw. You'll answer to me, he said finally. Commander Jahl. If you slow us down, if you make one mistake, you're gone. Betas are weak links on the field, and I don't keep weak links. He'd meant to cut me down with those words, but instead they sparked a flare of stubbornness in my chest. Weak link? Please. I'd spent a decade surviving on nothing but grit and spite. Good news, Commander, I said with a half-smile. I hate being slowed down too. If anyone gets in my way, I'll be sure to tell you. A couple of operatives nearby snickered. Jahl's jaw tightened. There it was. The first scent of war between us, sharp as ozone before a storm. He turned on his heel, motioning for me to follow. His stride was fast, deliberate. I trailed him down a corridor, lined with glass panels and metal doors, each stamped with clearance codes. The deeper we went, the heavier the air felt. My instincts screamed at me to run. Instead, I kept walking, shoulders loose, heartbeat steady. You were contracted for the field, Jahl said without looking back. We'll see if you survive long enough to justify the paperwork. I wanted to say something clever, something like, I always survive, but the truth was, I hadn't come here to survive. I'd come to infiltrate. To dig into the mess of disappearing omegas and rogue werewolf packs, to find the source of it all. Then I'd vanish again, leaving nothing but whispers behind. No bonds. No pack. No alpha collaring me like some branded property. That was the plan. So why did the back of my neck prickle every time Jahl's voice cut through the air? Why did it feel like my carefully built mask was already cracking under the weight of his gaze? I clenched my fists. It didn't matter. He saw a disposable beta mercenary, and I'd keep it that way. For now. If headquarters smelled like bleach and suspicion, the training hall reeked of sweat, gun oil, and bruised egos. The kind of place where people measured respect in broken bones and shooting scores. Jahl brought me in without ceremony, just a sharp jerk of his chin toward the squad clustered near the mats. 3 sets of eyes turned my way, each one weighing me like a cut of questionable meat. Your team, Jahl said flatly. For however long you last. Charming. The first to step forward was a woman with sharp cheekbones, cropped black hair, and eyes that gleamed with perpetual mischief. Her rifle rested slung over one shoulder like an extension of her spine. "Lena," she introduced herself, giving me a grin that was more like a dare. "I'm the one who'll be covering your ass when you forget how to aim." I smirked. "Good to know." "I prefer not to die, pretty." She snorted, clearly entertained. The mountain of muscle beside her wasn't. He loomed forward, crossing arms thick as steel pipes. Blonde buzz cut. A jaw that looked like it had been carved with a blunt knife. And the subtle aura of someone who believed volume solved everything. "Kurt," he said. No handshake. No grin. Just my name pronounced like a verdict. "Don't like rookies. Don't trust mercs." His eyes raked me from head to toe. "Betas don't last." "Then you'll be pleasantly surprised," I said, plastering on a bright smile. "I'm harder to kill than I look." His lip curled. Jahl didn't intervene. Figures. The last one, San, remained leaning against the wall, arms folded loosely. His dark hair fell into his eyes, and he had the quiet air of a man who noticed everything but rarely commented. "San," he offered simply. His gaze flicked over me once, thoughtful, but he said nothing else. The silence stretched until Lena clapped her hands. "Well, this'll be fun. Come on, fresh meat. Let's see if you can stand." We moved on to the mats. Jahl barked orders like a drill sergeant born and bred. His voice filled the hall, cold and precise. "Partner drills. Theo, you're with me." "Of course." He didn't give me time to argue. One second he was standing there, the next his hand shot out, aiming for my throat. Instinct saved me. I twisted sideways, deflecting the strike with my forearm. My muscles jolted under the impact. He hit like stone. "Slow," Jahl said, circling me. "Too slow. Try again." I grit my teeth. He lunged again, this time aiming for my ribs. I parried, rolled, landed on a knee. Sweat slid down my temple. Faster. Another strike, then another, until it was a blur of fists and boots. He wasn't training me. He was trying to break me. The message was obvious: prove yourself or crawl home. And damned if I was going to crawl. After the 10th exchange I snapped. "If this is just the warm-up, I'd like to file for emotional compensation." Lena barked a laugh from the sidelines. Even San's lips twitched. Kurt didn't laugh, though I was pretty sure he wanted to punch me just for talking. Jahl, however, didn't so much as blink. His next kick sent me sprawling onto my back, breath whooshing out of me. I lay there for a heartbeat, staring at the ceiling beams. My ribs screamed. My pride screamed louder. I rolled to my feet, grinning like an idiot. "Not bad," I said, even though my lungs were on fire. "You almost had me." His eyes narrowed, sharp as knives. "Almost?" I winked. For a moment the hall was electric with tension. His stance shifted, like he was a breath away from planting me back into the floor. I braced, ready to throw myself at him just to prove I wasn't going to bow. Then finally he straightened and stepped back. Again. "Until you stop talking." "Impossible," I muttered. The drills went on until my body felt carved raw. By the end, my arms shook, sweat soaked through my shirt, and every bruise pulsed like a heartbeat. But I was still standing. That was enough. For now. Later in the briefing room I caught my reflection in the polished table, smeared sweat, wild grin, eyes that refused to dim. Around me, the squad slouched in chairs, listening to Jahl outline tomorrow's operation. My ears barely followed the details. Instead, I watched them. Lena, sharp, curious, amused by my defiance. Kurt, tense, distrust etched deep. San, quiet, calculating. And Jahl standing like a wall no one could climb. The thought hit me like a blade sliding under armor. I didn't need them to like me. I just needed them to underestimate me. And judging by the storm in Jahl's gray eyes when they flicked my way, he already did. Good. The abandoned industrial district looked like something out of a nightmare. Rusted scaffolding clawed at the night sky. Windows gaped empty like broken teeth, and the air stank of oil, wet iron, and something feral. "This is where it was spotted?" I muttered, adjusting the rifle strap on my shoulder. My boots crunched over shattered glass. "Confirmed trail," Jahl said, voice low, clipped. "Stay sharp. Lone werewolves are unpredictable. They don't negotiate. They kill." His tone implied he'd rather add especially betas like you, but for once, he didn't. The squad moved in formation, Lena ahead with her scope sweeping, San monitoring sensors on a handheld, Kurt stomping close enough to make the ground vibrate, and Jahl, the immovable shadow at the center of it all. And then there was me, the disposable wildcard. The stench hit first, musky, animal, threaded with a tang of blood. My gut tightened. Suppressants or not, my senses sharpened against my will. My skin prickled, hairs rising at the back of my neck. The beast was near. Contact, Lena hissed. Her finger twitched near the trigger. We rounded a corner into a warehouse, where moonlight spilled through holes in the roof. The creature crouched in the center of the concrete floor, twice the size of a man, silvered fur matted with gore, claws dripping. Its head whipped toward us, eyes gleaming yellow. It roared. The sound slammed into my chest like a hammer. Spread, Jahl barked. The squad scattered. Kurt charged first, bellowing as if trying to outroar the monster. The wolf swiped, sending him skidding across the floor. I raised my rifle, breath steady. 1 shot, 2, silver rounds pierced fur, but the beast barely flinched. It lunged toward Lena, faster than I'd expected. Move, I shouted. I dove, shoulder crashing into her side, knocking her out of reach, just as the claws scraped sparks across the concrete. My ribs screamed in protest. The wolf turned on me, lips peeled back, saliva dripping in ropes. My hands moved before thought did. Blade unsheathed, I slashed across its muzzle. It howled, staggering. Adrenaline blurred everything into sharp edges, shouts, gunfire, claws, the metallic stench of blood. The beast came again. I ducked under its swipe, drove my knife up into the soft flesh under its jaw, then kicked off its chest to roll clear. The blade tore free, slick and gleaming. Not bad for a warm-up, I panted, grinning despite the ache spreading through my side. From the corner of my vision, I caught Jahl watching. Not intervening, not scowling, just watching. Measuring. The fight dragged into brutal rhythm. Lena fired precise shots that slowed the beast. Kurt recovered enough to charge back in, and San lobbed flash grenades that blinded the monster long enough for me to land another strike. We weren't graceful, but we were relentless. Finally, Jahl moved. One clean motion, his sword flashing silver, slicing through tendon and bone. The werewolf crashed to the ground, twitching, then went still. The silence that followed was deafening. My chest heaved, sweat dripping into my eyes. My knuckles ached around the hilt of my knife. The floor reeked of burnt powder, blood, and the faint metallic tang of magic. I straightened, forcing a smirk. Well, that wasn't so bad. Anyone else need rescuing, or was that a one-time offer? Lena barked a laugh. I'll take it. Thanks for the shove. Kurt muttered something that sounded suspiciously like a growl. Jahl ignored both of them. His gaze had shifted, past the carcass, toward a dark corner of the warehouse. San, he said. San moved quickly, scanning the shadowed alcove. His scanner beeped, lights spiking. Energy source. Strong one. We followed, boots echoing over concrete. There, half buried in rubble, pulsed a crystal the size of a fist. Its surface was dark, almost black, but inside it glowed faintly, as if breathing. With each pulse the air thickened, vibrating against my skin. I froze. Every instinct screamed danger. What is that? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Jahl stepped closer, expression grim. The glow painted his face in eerie light. Don't touch it, he said quietly. But the command carried more weight than a shout. This is older than us. Older than our wars. If it's here, it means something worse is coming. For once, I didn't have a joke ready. The crystal pulsed again, and my chest tightened as if my own heartbeat answered. Fear, sharp and real, settled in my gut. And beneath it, unwelcome, confusing, a flicker of something else when I glanced at Jahl. Respect. The crystal was locked away in the Directorate's laboratory, sealed behind reinforced glass and half a dozen wards that hummed like angry bees. But even from the hallway I could feel it pulsing. Every beat thudded against the back of my skull, a rhythm that didn't belong to me. By the time we'd finished debriefing, a headache had sunk its claws behind my eyes. My palms sweated, my throat itched, and worse, I kept catching the faintest trace of my own scent. Suppressants should have masked it completely. They always had. Until now. I splashed water on my face in the washroom, stared at my reflection. My pupils looked dilated, skin pale. To anyone else, I probably just seemed exhausted after a fight. But I knew better. Something inside me was stirring. And the crystal was the trigger. Problem, Mercenary? The voice came from the doorway, low and sharp. I didn't need to look up to know who it was. Jahl leaned against the frame, arms crossed, eyes fixed on me like he was dissecting a cadaver. "Nothing a nap won't fix," I said lightly, wiping my face with a paper towel. "Unless naps are against regulation too?" He didn't smile. He never did. "You've been off since the mission." Sloppy, distracted. His gaze sharpened. "What are you hiding?" My pulse skipped. He couldn't know. "Not yet. Maybe I'm just allergic to your leadership style," I said, tossing the towel into the bin. "Too much scowling in one room, and my head starts to ache." His jaw tightened. He stepped into the room, closing the distance until I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. His presence was suffocating, controlled power, pressing in like a physical weight. "You think sarcasm makes you untouchable?" His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "I can smell lies, Theo. And you reek of them." My chest constricted. Was it possible he'd caught even a trace of what I was? I forced a laugh, sharp and brittle. "Maybe I just don't shower enough. Betas aren't known for smelling like roses, you know." For a moment, I thought he'd slam me into the wall and tear the truth out of me. His hand twitched at his side, then stilled. Instead, he leaned closer, his breath ghosting past my ear. "One mistake," he said. "One slip. And I'll cut you out before you drag the rest of us down." Then he pulled back, cold as ever, and walked away. I stood there shaking, not with fear, not exactly, but with the raw urge to slam something heavy into his perfect jaw. Later, back in my quarters, I collapsed onto the bed, boots still on. The walls felt too close, the air too thick. My head throbbed with every beat of that cursed crystal. I buried my face in my hands. The mask was cracking. For years I'd lived in control, suppressants, routines, the careful armor of a beta mercenary. I'd made myself sharp, reckless, impossible to pin down. No one had ever questioned it. No one had ever come close. Until now. Jahl's words replayed in my skull. "I can smell lies." What if he really could? What if, tomorrow, I woke and the suppressants failed completely? What if my body betrayed me in front of all of them? The thought of Kurt's sneering, Lena's wide-eyed curiosity, Sand's quiet stare, it burned. But worse was the image of Jahl. That cold disdain. That certainty that Omegas were weak. I clenched my fists against my knees. I'd survived too long to be unmasked now. I wasn't going to be pitied or caged, or dismissed. If the mask broke, I'd build another. And if Jahl tried to strip it away, I smiled bitterly at the ceiling. Then I'd make sure he bled for it. The forest loomed like a wall of shadows, thick with pine and damp earth. Night pressed heavy overhead. The moon, a pale coin barely breaking through the clouds. Every twig snapped like a gunshot beneath our boots as we moved deeper into the trees. I tried to steady my breathing, but the pounding in my head had only worsened since the warehouse. The crystal's energy hadn't stayed locked behind glass, it had followed us, seeping into my bones. Each pulse felt like it was dragging something raw and ancient to the surface. Lena whispered. "Trails fresh, something big. Positions," Jahl ordered. His voice carried sharp and clear through the comms. I adjusted my rifle, forcing my hands not to tremble. Whatever was out here, it wasn't just a stray. The air was too thick, too charged. My skin buzzed with it. Then, like a hammer blow, the world shifted. The forest lit with a pale blue glow, no source, no warning, just a wave of energy that blasted outward, rattling my teeth. I doubled over as fire ripped through my chest. Suppressants crumbled like paper set to flame. My scent, mine, poured into the air, thick and undeniable. "No," I gasped, clawing at my jacket. My body shuddered. Every nerve sparking. The ground tilted, the world spinning as instincts I'd buried for years surged up like a tide. And everyone smelled it. Kurt cursed loud enough to echo through the trees. Lena froze, eyes wide, rifle lowering in shock. Sand's scanner beeped frantically. Jahl turned on me like a blade unsheathed. "You," he snarled, voice raw. "You lied. An Omega." His fury cut sharper than claws. "Do you know what you've done? On the field, this is death for us all." I wanted to answer, to spit back something cutting, but my throat locked. My body wasn't listening anymore. My pulse roared in my ears, heat rolling under my skin. Every breath was fire and wild instinct. The growl hit before I could speak. From the trees an alpha werewolf burst through the underbrush. Massive, fur-bristling silver, eyes blazing with hunger. It moved like a storm, claws tearing into the dirt as it barreled toward us. Kurt raised his gun, but the beast swiped it aside like a toy. Lena fired, but the bullets barely slowed it. Then it turned on me. Instinct answered. I threw the rifle down, teeth gritted, blade flashing into my hand. When the beast lunged, I met it head on. The impact rattled my bones, claws grazing my shoulder, but I didn't fall. My body surged with strength I hadn't felt before. Speed, precision, raw fury. I ducked under its swipe and drove my knife deep into its side. It howled, staggering, and I followed with another strike. Then another. Energy screamed through me, wild and electric. My senses sharpened to unbearable clarity. Every heartbeat of the squad behind me. Every breath of the beast in front of me. It struck again, faster than thought, jaws snapping inches from my throat. I twisted, slammed the hilt of the knife up under its jaw, and used the momentum to shove it back. My muscles burned, lungs blazing, but I didn't let go. Come on. I roared, voice breaking. Come and die then. The beast lunged. I met it with everything I had. Steel flashed, blood sprayed hot. Claws tore my jacket. Pain lanced my side, but adrenaline drowned it. I drove the blade into its chest, right between its ribs, pushing until the tip tore out its back. The werewolf let out a final ragged howl, then collapsed, crushing me into the ground. Silence crashed down again. For a moment I just lay there, staring at the canopy above, chest heaving, knife still clenched in my hand. My body trembled uncontrollably, strength bleeding out of me as fast as it had come. Hands hauled the carcass off me. Jahl's face appeared above mine, pale in the moonlight, his gray eyes unreadable but burning. You fool, he spat, voice tight with something between rage and disbelief. You could have killed us all, an Omega in the field, what kind of madness? I coughed, shoving myself up onto an elbow. My whole body screamed in protest. And yet, I rasped, grinning through blood and exhaustion, I didn't. The fury in his face deepened, but beneath it I caught something else. A flicker. He'd seen me, seen what I'd done, and it unsettled him. My limbs gave out before I could add another sarcastic jab. Darkness swept in, dragging me under. The med bay smelled like antiseptic and silence. White walls, white sheets, white light. Everything too clean, too sharp. As if it wanted to scrub the blood and sweat right out of me. I lay on the cot with fresh bandages across my ribs, pretending I wasn't still shaking from the fight. The suppressant crash left my body raw, humming with a restless energy I couldn't burn off. The door hissed open. I didn't need to look up. The air shifted, heavier, colder. Jahl. He stood at the foot of the bed, arms folded, jaw set like stone. His eyes pinned me the way a predator pins prey, except there was no hunger, just judgment. You're done, he said. No hesitation, you'll be removed from the unit. An Omega in the field is a liability. You lied, and you risked every life out there. I forced myself upright, ignoring the stab of pain. Funny. I thought I saved those lives. Lena's at least. Kurt would have been Wolf Chow if I hadn't stepped in. That doesn't matter. His voice was steel. You compromised the mission. Your presence endangers the team. Heat flared in my chest, hotter than the pain. I swung my legs off the cot, meeting his gaze dead on. I'm not yours, I said, voice low but cutting. Not your problem, not your weak link. I'm not anyone's burden, Jahl. I'm here because I want to be. Try to kick me out. My lips curved in a sharp smile. And we'll see who walks away alive. The silence after my words was knife-thin. For the first time since I'd met him, something flickered in his eyes. Not rage, not contempt. Something unsettled. Doubt. He didn't like it. I could tell by the way his shoulders stiffened, the way his jaw clenched harder. The door opened again. Lena leaned casually against the frame, one brow arched. Well, I don't know about you, Commander, but I'd rather have Theo watching my back than Kurt. At least Theo hits what he swings at. Hey! Kurt's voice boomed from the hall before his head appeared, scowling. That Omega's a time bomb. You saw it, you all smelled it. He doesn't belong here. San followed, quiet as always, his gaze moving between us like he was watching a chess match. He didn't speak, but his silence weighed heavier than words. The room fractured along invisible lines. Lena, smirking, arms crossed, clearly ready to side with me. Kurt, furious, fists balled, wanting me gone yesterday. San, expression unreadable, cataloging every detail. And Jahl, caught between his doctrine and what he'd just seen. I leaned back against the cot, wincing at the pull in my side. So what's it gonna be, Commander? Toss me out and pretend last night didn't happen? Or admit your Omega weak link is the reason we're all breathing? Jahl's lips pressed into a thin line. He turned sharply, cloak of authority settling over him again. Get some rest, he said. His voice was controlled, but not as certain as before. We move out tomorrow. The door slid shut behind him, leaving me with the others. Lena grinned. Guess you're not going anywhere. Kurt growled something about mistakes and stormed off. San just watched me for a long, unreadable moment, then nodded once, like he'd decided something I wasn't privy to. I let out a breath and lay back down, staring at the ceiling. The mask had cracked. The truth was out. And somehow, instead of ending me, it had forced them to see me, even Jahl. The border town looked like any other patchwork settlement. Rows of brick buildings sagging. Underage, neon signs flickering, the smell of fried food masking the rot underneath. Kids ran in the alleys, couples argued over groceries, and no one knew that doom pulsed just beyond the walls. We knew. The crystal sat in a sealed container, its faint glow pulsing faster now, like a heartbeat sprinting toward collapse. Jahl carried it in one hand as if it weighed nothing, though the tension in his shoulders betrayed otherwise. Commander, San said, eyes on his scanner. The readings are spiking. It's not a weapon, it's a signal. Jahl's head snapped around. Explain. San swallowed. It's calling something. Drawing it in. He hesitated. Not one thing. Many. My stomach clenched. A beacon. A damn dinner bell for every monster in the zone. Lena muttered a curse. Kurt's hand went straight to his weapon. And me? I laughed. Too sharp, too loud. But it was either that or panic. So great, I said. We didn't just pick up a cursed rock. We picked up a cursed rock with friends on the way. Anyone else feel like turning this thing back in for a refund? No one laughed. The first growl echoed from the tree line. Then, another. Then dozens, overlapping until the sound turned the air to ice. Shapes emerged. Wolfish, twisted, eyes glowing. Claws tearing at the ground as they swarmed from the dark. Jahl cursed under his breath. Form a perimeter. Protect the civilians. Buy time. He turned to me, his gaze like a blade. You stay back. Out of the fight. I barked a laugh. Sure. I'll just sit tight and knit while the apocalypse rolls in. I'm not asking, he snapped. You are unstable. If you fall, we all fall. Then I guess we all fall together, I shot back, already checking my rifle. Because I'm not watching from the sidelines while your hero routine gets everyone killed. His nostrils flared, but before he could argue, the first wave hit. Chaos exploded. Monsters poured into the streets, claws raking, teeth snapping. Civilians screamed, scattering into buildings as our squad opened fire. Silver rounds cut through the first few, but for every body that fell, 3 more surged forward. I fired until the barrel seared my palms, each shot slamming into fur and bone. Kurt bellowed like a berserker, swinging his axe in brutal arcs. Lena's rifle cracked with precision, dropping targets before they touched the civilians. San lobbed grenades that lit the night in bursts of fire and ash. And Jahl cut through the beasts like death in a tailored uniform, every strike of his blade clean, merciless. I should have stayed back. I didn't. One of the creatures lunged at a boy scrambling out of a doorway. My legs moved before thought did. I slammed into the beast, driving my knife up under its jaw, dragging it down with me. Blood splattered, hot and acrid. The boy bolted, screaming. Damn it, Theo. Jahl's voice thundered through the chaos. I spat blood off my lip. Relax. I'm doing great cardio over here. Another wolf came at me. I ducked, swung and grinned like a maniac when its claw only grazed me. Adrenaline blurred fear into something sharper. My body moved on instinct. The Omega surge humming under my skin, even though the suppressants still dragged at me. I wasn't supposed to be here. Wasn't supposed to fight like this. But I couldn't stop. Not when people needed saving. Not when Jahl still looked at me like a liability. A massive brute slammed into me, throwing me across a cart of fruit. Oranges rolled everywhere. I groaned, staggered up and shouted, "If I live through this, someone owes me groceries." Lena laughed breathlessly as she reloaded. Even in the chaos her grin was sharp. But the waves kept coming. The beacon pulsed harder inside its case, calling more. The town wouldn't hold. I fought harder, blood slicking my knuckles, vision swimming. Fear coiled in my gut, but so did something else, raw defiance. I'd die on my feet before I let them shove me aside. Jahl appeared beside me, his blade dripping. His face was grim, furious, but his stance shifted just enough to cover my flank. "Idiot," he growled. "Glad you noticed," I panted, driving my knife into another beast. For one fractured moment, we stood shoulder to shoulder, back to back, against the tide. The commander and his unwanted Omega, holding the line together. And despite the terror clawing at my insides, a savage smile broke across my face. Because for the first time, I wasn't hiding. The town was breaking apart, walls caved in under the monster's weight, glass shattered, flames licked the rooftops. The air stank of smoke, blood, and fear. I stumbled across the ruined street, knife slick in my grip, lungs burning with every breath. Another beast lunged, and before I could strike, Jahl's blade cut it down in a single motion. "Left," he barked. I spun without thinking, burying my knife in the throat of the wolf charging from the side. Blood sprayed warm across my face. I yanked the blade free, panting. For a moment we locked eyes, me shaking and bloodied, him cold and steady, and then another wave hit, dragging us back into the storm. We fought in rhythm we hadn't earned but somehow found. His strikes carved openings, mine slipped through them. My blade was messy, desperate. His was precise, lethal. We covered each other without speaking. For the first time, it felt like fighting with a partner instead of against a wall. A hulking brute barreled toward me, claws raised. Jahl's hand shot out, dragging me back an inch before the strike connected. His sword severed its arm, and I drove my knife home into its chest. The beast fell between us. "You're reckless," he growled. I spat blood to the side. "And you're bossy." "Somehow it works." To my surprise, his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Then the crystal pulsed again. Harder, brighter. A wave of force rippled through the street, knocking us both to our knees. More howls echoed from the forest's edge. "It won't stop," Sand shouted from behind cover. "As long as that thing's intact, they'll keep coming." Jahl's eyes snapped to mine. "We destroy it." I coughed a laugh. Finally, something we agree on. The container lay half-crushed in the rubble where Kurt had dropped it. The crystal glowed like a star going nova, its pulse a siren call that rattled my bones. We sprinted together, cutting down everything in our way. Lena's cover fire cleared a path. Sand's grenade slowed the pack, but it was the two of us who closed in on the source. Another wolf lunged. Jahl cleaved it down. I vaulted the carcass, grabbed the crystal with both hands. The energy seared my skin, heat burning straight into my chest. "Don't," Jahl started, but it was too late. The thing thrummed against my palms, alive and furious. My head filled with a roar, instincts screaming to drop it, to run. But I held tighter, teeth gritted. "It's feeding off me," I gasped. "I can feel it." Jahl's hand closed over mine, strong and grounding. His voice cut through the noise. "Then we end it. Together." Our gazes locked, his gray eyes hard but no longer cold. For the first time, no contempt. He raised his blade over the crystal. "Hold it steady." "Gladly," I hissed. I braced, every muscle screaming, as he brought the sword down. Steel struck stone, light flared blinding, and the crystal shattered with a sound like the world breaking. The wave of energy ripped outward, tossing us both back. I hit the ground hard, ears ringing, lungs empty. When I finally forced my eyes open, the night was quiet. Too quiet. No more howls. The monsters lay dead, their bodies crumbling into ash as the magic unraveled. The beacon was gone. I rolled onto my back, chest heaving, staring at the smoke-streaked sky. The town was wrecked, walls torn down, fires smoldering, people huddled in fear. But they were alive, and so were we. A shadow fell over me. Jahl crouched, his blade sheathed, his face unreadable. "You're not weak," he said, voice low, steady. His gaze held mine. I was wrong. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. Then I smirked, because sarcasm was easier than whatever else I was feeling. "Wow. Did it hurt, saying that out loud?" He exhaled. Something like a laugh, sharp and weary. We sat there for a moment in the ruins, shoulder to shoulder, the world quiet around us. For once, there was no command in his presence, no chains in mine. Just two hunters who had survived together. And for the first time since I'd walked into headquarters, I felt the weight in my chest ease. The camp was a patchwork of tents thrown up in the ruins, the air heavy with smoke and exhaustion. Soldiers moved like ghosts, tending to wounds, dragging debris, whispering about the fight we'd just barely survived. I sat near the fire, hands wrapped around a tin cup of water. My knuckles were split, ribs still aching, body one giant bruise. But the silence pressed harder than the pain. Footsteps crunched behind me. I didn't need to turn. Jahl's presence always carried a weight, like the air bent around him. He lowered himself onto the log beside me, the firelight painting his sharp features in golden shadow. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally he said quietly, "I felt it. In the fight." I raised an eyebrow, keeping my gaze on the flames. Felt what? My knife doing all the real work? He didn't take the bait. His voice was low, almost careful. A bond. My chest tightened. Of course. The way our movements had synced, the way his touch had grounded me against the crystal. It hadn't just been coincidence. The Omega inside me had recognized him. And maybe his Alpha had recognized me too. I sipped my water, masking the sudden tremor in my hand. "Bad news, Commander. I don't do leashes." He turned then, eyes pale and unflinching. "This isn't about control, it's about connection. I've spent my life believing Omegas weaken the chain. But tonight," he exhaled, a sharp sound like admitting defeat. "Tonight proved me wrong." The words landed heavier than any blow he'd thrown in training. I forced a grin anyway, because if I let the moment go unshielded, it might swallow me whole. "I'm not your property," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "I'm not anyone's. I'm with you because I choose to be. The second you forget that, the second you try to make me yours in the wrong way," I tapped 2 fingers against my temple, "I'll carve a reminder right into that pretty forehead of yours." Silence. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. Not the bitter mocking sound I'd imagined, but something warmer, tired, real. "I believe you would," he said. We sat in the quiet that followed, the fire crackling, the camp murmuring around us. For the first time, the space between us wasn't filled with suspicion or disdain. Just possibility. It was terrifying. And strangely, I didn't hate it. I leaned back, smirking into the flames. "Don't get comfortable, Commander. I'm still the reckless one. And I," he said, eyes on the fire, "am still the one keeping you alive." Somehow, that felt less like a threat and more like a promise. The city was quiet again, though silence after chaos always carried its own kind of weight. From the roof of headquarters I could see the jagged line of the ruined border town far in the distance. Fires had burned out, but the scars remained. The night air was cool, crisp, carrying the scent of smoke, steel, and something steadier beneath it. The bond still hummed faintly in my chest, like an echo I couldn't shake. I leaned against the ledge, arms crossed, pretending the view mattered more than the footsteps I heard approaching behind me. "You should be resting," Jahl said. I smirked without turning. "And miss the dramatic rooftop talk? No chance." He came to stand beside me, tall and steady, his gaze fixed on the horizon. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then, finally, "Stay," one word, heavy as an order, but softer than any he'd ever given me. I turned, arching a brow. "That's it? No lecture? No list of conditions? Just stay?" His jaw worked, eyes pale and unyielding. "You've proven yourself. To them, to me. I was wrong about you, Theo. Wrong about Omegas. I don't want you gone." Something in my chest tightened. Sharp, dangerous, almost hopeful. I covered it with a grin. "Careful, Commander. You're starting to sound almost human." He exhaled through his nose, something between a sigh and a laugh. "So? Will you?" I stepped closer, close enough that the firelight from below flickered across his face. My smirk widened into something sharper. "If you ever call me weak again," I said, low and deliberate, "I'll burn a mark right onto that forehead of yours. My very own personal brand." His lips twitched, like he was fighting not to smile. "Noted." For a while we stood in silence, shoulder to shoulder, the city sprawling below us. The night no longer felt suffocating, it felt open, wide, almost promising. The hunt wasn't over, it never would be. But for the first time I wasn't running alone. I drew in a slow breath, the air sharp in my lungs. This time, I didn't flinch from my own scent.